Barracks history. Protocol and docents. Mission of the barracks. The barracks performs Friday night parades, Tuesday sunset parades, joint service honor ceremonies at the Pentagon, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and the White House. The Battle Color Detachment, BCD, comprised of the Commandant's own Drum and Bugle Corps, the Silent Drill Platoon, and the official color guard of the Marine Corps, perform at ceremonies and events across the nation and throughout the National Capital Region. Barracks Tour. How it starts. Tours will start at the main gate, Post 1. Docent will stand at attention and salute group, and then introduce themselves and the barracks, as well as the barracks commander. Barracks history. Barracks was founded March 31st by 2nd Commandant L.T. Call Burroughs and 3rd President Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson required the barracks be within marching distance to the Capitol and to the Navy Yard. A Lot 927 was purchased for $6,247.18, which is roughly $155,247.34 in 2025. The barracks was Headquarters Marine Corps from 1801 to 1901. A land and construction, or the Barak Congress, for the purchase of the $13,750 remained for construction of the barracks and the home of the commandants. A Lot 927 was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1972. Barracks Tour continued. Truman Crawford Hall, named after Carl Truman Crawford, is a 20,000 square feet D&B rehearsal space, classroom, and ceremony hall. 3 40mm cannons fired and maintained by the world-famous body bearers, used during Friday night parades and other ceremonies to render honors. Barracks Tour continued. Troop Walk. Southeast portion of the barracks originally housed water closets, bathing facilities, and a small house containing a swimming pool. East side portions of the barracks is where troops march through, hence the name Troop Walk when coming onto parade deck. There are 7 companies at Marine Barracks Washington: a Co., B Co., H&S Co., Guard Co., President's Own Band, Commandant's Own Drum and Bugle Corps, and the Marine Corps Enlisted Aid Program. Barracks Tour continued. USS Nicholas Bell. The USS Nicholas Bell is the official bell of the barracks that was gifted to the United States Marine Corps by the United States Navy. The bell originally came from the USS Nicholas, a Navy destroyer that was commissioned in 1942, named our first Commandant Major Samuel Nicholas. The bell mounted on the flagpole is not the original bell. The original bell is now mounted in center house. Barracks Tour continued. USS Nicholas Bell. The original USS Nicholas Bell had gotten fractured and moved to center house due to lore. A challenge amongst all the Marines to see who could break the bell by ringing it. A body bearer coming out to conduct morning colors had rung it as hard as he could and fractured the bell. A ship bells during the time were made with church brass due to a shortage in naval brass. There are 2 names inscribed on the inner portion of the bell. These names are from any officer who wanted to baptize their child. This tradition is still held today in the Navy and Marine Corps. Barracks Tour continued. On either side of the bell, you will notice 2 artillery cannons captured during the Boxer Rebellion in 1900. One is 56 mm and the other is 61 mm. Behind the cannons are 2 memorial placards for the Marine Corps mascot, the Bulldog Chesty, named after our most decorated Marine Lt. Gen. Lewis Chesty B. Puller. The placards are for Chesty the 7th and Chesty the 9th, the only 2 mascots to die while on active duty. Fun fact: Chesty the 8th went AWOL during his time in service. It's said that during an evening parade, he got loose and ran away. Continued. Along Troop Walk, holly bushes run parallel to the pavement. You'll notice gaps within that have a purpose. The purpose is to allow access for supernumeraries or any corpsmen to make any adjustments that are needed on the parade deck. The USMC original logo, EGA, was approved by the 7th Commandant of the Marine Corps B. Gen. Jacob Zeilen. The globe shows the Western Hemisphere while the Royal Marines adopted the Eastern Hemisphere. The logo was later changed in June 1954 by the former Commandant of the Marine Corps Gen. Lemuel C. Shepard, Jr., which is the new emblem. Approaching General's Walk, the building located on the far northeastern corner was originally the stable for the Commandant, which has since been turned into a garage for the CMC, ACMC, and SGT Maj of the Marine Corps. General's Walk. The green shed in the garden looks like a gardening shed, but is a fully functioning commercial kitchen. Owned and operated by MCEP, Marine Corps Enlisted Aids Program Marines. Mainly used when the Commandant is hosting events and entertaining guests. However, it is also used as a training facility for other MCAP Marines who are attached to the other 3-star generals in the Marine Corps. General's Walk. General Walk was named so in honor of generals who walk and have walked that same path. Commandant's Home is the oldest continually occupied federal building in the District of Columbia. Construction started in 1803, completed in 1805, and occupied in 1806 by the 3rd Commandant of the Marine Corps, Lt. Col. Wharton. A lore. During the War of 1812, when the British burnt down the capital, the British had also raided the barracks. Englishmen got word that before the Marines AHD departed the post, they buried a lot of treasure from the Barbary pirates and British Army. So the British had dug almost a dozen holes trying to find it. General's Walk continued. The barracks was allotted $20,000 to build both the barracks and the house. However, building the barracks put us $5,000 over budget. To allow construction of the house, the Commandant at the time told all barracks Marines to put aside their duties and begin construction on the house. The Marines were paid their normal wages plus a gill of rum, which is roughly 6 shots. Because of the poor craftsmanship of the Marines, you can see some misshapen bricks. Along with that, some of the walls in the interior are around 3 feet thick. The Marines also overcooked the bricks, which caused them to come out a salmon pink color, which was later painted white to match the surrounding federal buildings. General's Walk continued. Over the years, the home has gone under multiple renovations, including the sun porch on the rear. The 3rd floor was added, and the right side of the house, from the rear, was extended. The open area to the left of the house is known as the Marine Family Garden. All plants inside the garden are chosen by the Commandant's wife. This is a place of reflection, and one of the only places you can be in uniform outside without a cover. It is also used as a reception area for Friday night parades, Commandant dinner parties, and other ceremonial events. Officers' Walk. This pathway was originally only allowed to be walked on by officers. Located on Officers' Walk are the homes of some of the most important individuals in the Marine Corps. There are 5 quarters or houses on Officers' Walk with a garden and a motif in each garden. Each quarter will have its own distinct motif that holds significant meaning to the Marine Corps. Quarters 1. Motif in the Garden of Q1 is a fixed-wing sundial. It represents the Marine Air Wing and the Assistant Commandant's past, as the Assistant Commandant almost always comes from an aviation background. Home of the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, currently General Christopher J. Mahoney, and his wife, Mrs. Mahoney. General Mahoney is a graduate of Top Gun and has over 5,000 hours of flight time in the A-6, F-5, F-18, and the F-35, and is a qualified forward air controller and parachutist. This house is also slightly larger than the other houses on Officers' Walk, visible by the extra window pane. This adds an extra 900 square feet. General Mahoney. Quarters 2. Motif in the Garden of Quarter 2 is a 155 mm artillery shell representing the Marine Corps force in readiness, and how elements of the Marine Corps can be deployed to anywhere within 72 hours. Home of the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major Ruiz, and his wife, Mrs. Ruiz. Sergeant Major Ruiz's personal awards include the Legion of Merit with Gold Star, Bronze Star Medal with Combat Distinguishing Device, and many others. Sergeant Major Ruiz is only the 2nd Sergeant Major to live in this house, the first being Sergeant Major Black. This was made possible by the previous Commandant Jen Berger. He wanted to show that the Marine Corps enlisted and commissioned officers were a cohesive unit. Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Carlos A. Ruiz. Quarters 3. The motif in the Garden of Quarters 3 are 4 round-shot cannonballs representing Marines' duties on naval ships, which would be manning the cannons or guns, which gave us the rank Gunnery Sergeant, Master Gunnery Sergeant, and Gunner in the Marine Corps. Home of the Commanding Officer of Marine Barracks Washington, currently Colonel Carrie C. Batson and her husband Col. Stephen Fiscus, Ret. In July 2024, Col Batson assumed command of Marine Barracks Washington, D.C. Commanding Officer of Marine Barracks Washington, Colonel Carey C. Batson. Center Walk. During Friday evening parades, we fly an American flag with 15 stars and 15 stripes, also known as the 1801 flag. It represents the 15 states of the Union at the time the barracks were founding in 1801. MBW is one of the few places that can fly this flag. Quarters 4. The motif in the Garden of Quarters 4 is a naval anchor, which represents our naval tradition and heritage. We are a department of the Navy that still depends on the Navy for certain functions like corpsmen and chaplains. The resident of this home is a 3-star general determined by the Commandant. Currently the home of Deputy Commandant of Aviation Lt. Gen. Bradford J. Gehring and his wife Mrs. Gehring. His personal decorations include the Defense Superior Service Medal with Oak Cluster, Legion of Merit with Gold Star, and many others. Deputy Commandant of Aviation Lieutenant General Bradford J. Gehring. Quarters 5. The motif in the Garden of Quarters 5 is a bell from the USS Forest, a naval destroyer. It was gifted to us by the Navy after it was retired in November 1945. The USS Forest was in the Battle of Okinawa, where it took 3 kamikaze attacks to render it non-operational. Center House, or the officer bachelor's quarters, was initially centered on the parade deck, but due to the Boston fires of 1981, it was burned down and relocated to its current position close to Gate 10. Quarters 5 can only be utilized by officers stationed at MBW or part of the Center House Association. The only way to gain entry to Center House is to be invited by an officer stationed at MBW. Quarters 5. Mounted inside is the original USS Nicholas Bell with a hairline fracture. A highly decorated library with assorted books and documents passed down from officers who were stationed here previously. Many books have annotations, notes, and other personalizations from the officers reading the book or document. There are 4 guest bedrooms in the quarters for officers to sleep at night, occasionally used after large ceremonies.